Welcome back to Keeper Corner, where we go in depth on various aspects in American goalkeeping. I'm Bill, and Keeper Corner is actually just an extension of Everybody Soccer, which covers even more American goalkeepers from college to professional goalkeepers here playing in the US to goalkeepers playing in obscure countries overseas, both men's and women's. It's everything goalkeepers. So no forwards, no midfielders, no defenders, just goalkeepers. So today we're going to go through the top 10 games by U.S. national team goalkeepers. This includes the men's teams, the women's teams, the youth national teams. If you're wearing a U.S. jersey, you're qualified for this. And this is all actually brought out of a older post that I did a long time ago where I've just cataloged great games by U.S. goalkeepers. And now their list has just grown and grown and grown, and we're up to 40. So you can go take a look at that. You can see some of these saves here from a lot of big moments. If you want to go to that post, you can see the link below. But today we're just going to talk about the top 10 games to give an idea of what are these great moments in U.S. soccer. Tony Meola versus England, 1993 U.S. Cup. So with any great game from a goalkeeper, typically comes poor defending, and I think we can see that in this game. This is the final game in a four-team tournament, including Brazil, Germany, and this 2-0 win secured the U.S.'s third place. And although this game may not mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, I think at the time, uh, going against big powerhouse teams obviously meant a lot. And this is going into the 94 World Cup where we got out of the group stage and kind of set a good tone for us going forward here of being this a team that punches up. And I think Meola is kind of center stage for this. You can see, especially on this save here,
And it's a brilliant save by Meola.
with a deflected shot. I mean, that's easily his best save in my opinion. And I think that's a save that most goalkeepers don't make even today. I think Meola's game is really built out of athleticism, and I would argue the most athletic goalkeeper that's ever played for the U.S. And it's a lot of in '93. There's a lot of moments where you have to play off your line and kind of deal with scrambles in the box and through balls and breakaways. And Meola handles all that really, really cleanly and really, really nice and succinctly here, making quick decisions in it. So big game from Meola. I know a lot of people will talk about the Trinidad game, but for me, this game really highlights his strengths as one of our top goalkeepers ever. Tim Howard versus Mexico 2012 friendly. So for people who weren't around in 2012, the U.S.-Mexico rivalry was a bit different, and Azteca specifically had a different aura. We had never won at Azteca at this point, and in the last 24 matches in Mexico, we had not won. So going into this match, you don't have high hopes as a fan, and on top of that, just a little over a year ago, the U.S. had blew a 2-0 lead in the 2011 Gold Cup with this fantastic goal here against the same goalkeeper, Howard. And then just this past summer, at this point, the Olympics happened where Mexico won, and the U.S. not only didn't qualify, but we didn't qualify in kind of painful fashion. So this game is kind of can be summed up as waiting for us to lose or just hoping to get a tie out. We end up scoring maybe the sloppiest goal of all time.
Just lost control at the vital moment,
here.
plays it in towards point, and the USA do have the lead.
And then moments later, we have this very hectic play. Hopefully you can feel how hectic and stressful this moment is from the defending. This save is actually very reminiscent of the Hope Solo save against Canada here with the deflection. How Howard's knee bends like that and is okay is kind of crazy. But this is a good testament to kind of the American will to push through a moment. And certainly from a goalkeeping perspective is very exciting to watch. Big save late in the 90th minute as well. Again, hopefully you can get a sense of how stressful this moment was. And so for us to pick up a win in this friendly, notice how everyone is so overlated with joy and just beaming here. Lots of hugs going around. There's a reason for that. This is a big, big win. Jimmy Douglas versus Belgium, 1930 World Cup. So the 1930 World Cup is a very odd tournament looking back. It's definitely not like the 2024 World Cup. And although they both share the name World Cup, the reality is a lot of European nations, especially the top ones, just decided to not go because they didn't view the tournament as legitimate. And how it was structured at the time is still a little odd looking back as well. But the reality is this is the first shutout in World Cup history. And so I think this stands out for a few reasons for me. But number one is from an early point, American goalkeeping was at a top level. And I think this is a really good testament to not only his skill, but also in the moment of like being there first. I think this is a wonderful time. So we don't have any video from this, unfortunately, but we do have some really wonderful pictures, and I think kind of showcases like what goalkeepers were doing at the time. They're coming out and playing big in the air. I like to think of this position at this point in time is kind of like a strong safety in American football, maybe a linebacker in some ways, where you're getting bumped around, you're going up for balls, you probably don't have gloves, and you're having to deal with a totally different object than what we normally know as soccer balls these days. So I think it's tough to say you were first because only one person gets to say it, but we get to say it, which is cool. Tim Howard versus Belgium, 2014 World Cup. So this game holds a weird point in American soccer history because it's hard to overlook the moments that could have been this, could have been that. We certainly could have won the game, and so it's tough to look at the goalkeeping when there were those moments. But I will say, when you say 15, 16 shots, things are going well for you in some sense. You may notice that the number has changed over the years. There's still like a little debate, I think, on whether some of these moments are really saves or not. But the reality is, in the game, you got this swelling feeling that like Howard could not get beat. And obviously the US lost in the game, but you can just see their frustration from the Belgian players of like, how is this still happening? I think this specific play here is probably a good example of who saves a shot with the bottom of their foot. And it's such a bizarre moment in time. The whole game is very, very odd. But I think as a goalkeeper, if you go through a game and your team ends up losing and you're the hero, you're the legend, you did something right as a goalkeeper. Alyssa Naeher versus England, 2019 World Cup.
Horton, saved!
So this game really comes down to two moments for me. The game starts off with a lot of goals. The first 30 or so minutes, we get 3 goals here. And then in the 33rd minute, we get this moment here from Naeher, and this is a big save here. So it's good footwork. You see a lot of goalkeepers who would just dive instantly, thinking they can get it. So it's good footwork. And I also love that she pushes this ball around the post. Again, you'll see a lot of goalkeepers try to lift this over the crossbar, but with the way that ball is dipping in, and away from the keeper, really going around the post is your ideal location, in my opinion. So I love this save because it's a little scrappy. It's a good save. But then the penalty obviously is awesome. I think we know Naeher now as this penalty hero who's great at taking penalties, both scoring and blocking them. But she makes this penalty late in the game. And then my highlight of the game for me personally is how everyone swarms her, which you love to see as a goalkeeper. But then she's like back to business. She's like, no, no, go. We have to go play a game. And so really wonderful moment. And this is in the midst of like, you think, okay, like they're probably going to score here. We're looking at extra time. And for a goalkeeper to change the outcome like this, it's huge, especially in a semifinal game. Wonderful moment, wonderful game. Frank Borghi versus England, 1950 World Cup. So similar to the 1930 matchup against Belgium, there's not much recorded from this specific game. Unfortunately, we do get a little bit of video and we still get some wonderful pictures. So don't mind if Gerard Butler shows up because there was a movie that came out of this called The Game of Their Lives, which goes over specifically kind of the lead up to this game, but also the game itself. And I think it honestly really encapsulates what's being required of a goalkeeper and the scrappiness and the dirt field and everything that goes in with it. I think the legendariness of this moment of this game is not doesn't surprise me why there's a movie that comes out of it. So really wonderful moment, and if you're getting carried off at the end of the game on people's shoulders, yeah, you did something right. Kasey Keller versus Brazil, 1998 Gold Cup. So for me, this is like the 2014 Belgium game, but we won. And some of the saves that Howard made in that game, Keller is actually holding them in this game. And so different moments, I understand. World Cup, Gold Cup, I understand that. But this is a really wonderful game because it's like shot after shot. And you're, again, expecting Brazil to kind of break away at this point. They're going to score right. I think there is a bit of an asterisk when it comes to the Brazil team here. There's actually only 7 Brazilians on this Gold Cup squad that go to the World Cup. And although we have Romario here that gives a high praise to Keller, of saying something along the lines of, this is the best performance I've ever seen by a goalkeeper. And you can see there's some wonderful kind of playful moments between the two in the game. Personally, like I'm not looking to outsource kind of standards of American goalkeeping to Brazilian strikers. So I think there are some asterisks with this. I mean, this team, they finished second in the group behind Jamaica, which is why they had to play the US in the first round of the knockout. So this is maybe a B or C team in some sense for Brazil. But knowing that it's still a wonderful game from Keller, I think that's the only reason why this isn't rated higher on the list for me. But it's a big game from Keller, wonderful individual performance, and again, something we remember for a reason. Brianna Scurry versus Brazil, 1999 World Cup. This is the often forgotten match in this World Cup. Obviously, there is another moment in this World Cup that's remembered more, but I think in this moment, you really see Scurry's not only highest abilities, which is again immense athleticism here of what she can do, but also the ability to solve situations that aren't really super common or really typical. I think this save back to the back post here, you just don't see goalkeepers having the ability to make the save, even less so being able to make the save. So it's just there's so many levels to this. It's a lot of fun. I love how Tony DeCicco phrased it, where he just said Brianna just took over, and I think you definitely get that sense watching this game and going back and looking at it. You really buy into like, yeah, there's no way Scurry's going to get beaten this. And so a lot of big saves here. Again, this is the semifinal, so this is the lead up to the final. But I think that if I'm looking at one game to show someone about Brianna Scurry's game, this is the one because there's so many moments in this that she really salvages the US's win. Brad Friedel versus South Korea, 2002 World Cup. This game is the most underrated game for me for a U.S. goalkeeper. Friedel is a giant in this game, and he ends up saving two penalties in the tournament, one of a few goalkeepers to do that. But specifically, one of them came in this game here. It's a big moment here, and it's just so fun to watch him play because he feels kind of large in life. He's a massive guy. He's a tall guy. And so there's just so much to it. I think the penalty save for me is really wonderful because similar to Naeher, getting back to business, you see Friedel take a second to get a rare fist pump, and then he clicks back in. He's like, "Where's the ball?" He's kind of thinking ahead of the next play here. And throughout the game, it's just save, 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 and you start seeing that Cobra pose of just the Korean players are just thinking like, "Hey, how are we going to actually break this?" The game does end up going to a 1-1 tie, but without all those saves, this doesn't propel the U.S. going forward. If they had dropped this game, they would have finished last in the group. And so they end up getting second in the group, make the big quarterfinal run in the 2002 World Cup. And everyone remembers the finish and kind of how that winds down. But this is a game that's often forgot about, and Friedel just stands on his head, playing at the top of his level, not only with a penalty save, but just save after save in this. And for me, this is easily his best game for the U.S. Brianna Scurry versus China, 1999 World Cup. Okay, let's get out of the way. Yes, she was off the line, and I think this is something that's come up a lot in later years, maybe a little bit at the time as well. Let me give a few defenses for why that does not matter. So number one, it was fairly common to do this. You can think of kind of like NBA players going into the lane once the ball is released from the hand before it hits the rim. Technically, that's not allowed, but like people just kind of let it go. You can see in the 94 World Cup shootout, we have the Brazilian goalkeeper Tafarel here who's jumping significantly off his line. I've never seen a goalkeeper go as far down the line as Scurry. I will readily admit that. However, we have other goalkeepers at a top level doing this. You also see the Chinese goalkeeper Gao Hong also getting off the line. Again, not as far as Scurry, but she does end up jumping off the line. But it's also worth mentioning that this isn't the first attempt in the shootout that Scurry faces. She ends up going way down the line for all of them, and I don't know why the AR is there if they're not going to call it. To see if the ball goes in or not. I feel like that's kind of obvious, but they allow this to happen. They don't call anything, so if that's happening, yeah, you go for it. You take what you can get. But I think really the number one thing why for me personally that the whole going down the line thing doesn't matter is from a goalkeeping perspective, you're cutting down your reaction time. So yes, you are trading off, cutting down the angle of the goal. So you're making yourself bigger as the goal is getting smaller as you're moving forward towards a shot, but you're also losing reaction time. And so I think there's kind of it's really tough to mathematically say, hey, this is, the optimal position to be at, because the farther down the line you get, yeah, you're losing reaction time off this. And you really see how much she covers the ground. It's not just a shot into the body, it's away. So she still has to go out a bit for a shot that's, she's close distance on, so it's coming in faster at her. She could just move over. She's actually going up and over to make a save as opposed to just over. So And to be honest, our game leading into this, I wouldn't say it's a snooze fest because it is very tense and exciting in that sense, but there aren't a lot of moments in the game. There's a ball that gets headed off the line at some point, but Scurry doesn't have a whole lot to do during the game as far as making saves go. But this singular moment, if you're a goalkeeper and you make a penalty save and your team wins World Cup, I mean, this is something everyone dreams about. You don't dream about collecting a cross or something. Like this is the moment that you're waiting for as a goalkeeper. So that's why it's number one. It's the most iconic moment in U.S. soccer, in my opinion. All the pictures that come out of it, all the feelings and emotions, and it's still talked about today, even though it was over 20 years ago. It's a huge, huge moment, and I think Scurry cements herself as one of, if not the greatest goalkeeper in U.S. soccer history.
The shot, save Scurry!
So, what do you think? Did I miss a game? Is there a game that's too high or too low on the list? Leave a comment below, tell me what you think, and take a look at Everybody's Soccer, where there's more information on not only this topic, but just American goalkeeping in general.